Hey everyone, Algonath here from The Right Way, and another article about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial that's happening in the US. Basically, this person shot and killed two people and injured another person. And you might be wondering, well, why is this causing major news around the world? Well, because he claims that he did it in self-defense, and the prosecution is not going very well for the prosecutor, because even the testimony from the prosecutor's own witnesses have shown that Kyle, from what I can tell, did actually shoot the two people that he killed in self-defense and also injured the other person in self-defense as well. So I've got an article on the Daily Mail from a defense attorney called Mark Eiglash. Hopefully I said that correctly. So it reeks of desperation and bad faith. Hopeless prosecutor shows Kyle Rittenhouse murder trial may have been a gross waste of taxpayer dollars and precious judicial resources. So let's have a read. Desperate times call for desperate measures. That's the quotation that comes to mind after observing the prosecutor's behaviour in court during the cross-examination of Kyle Rittenhouse. The 18-year-old is on trial for shooting and killing two men and wounding a third during a night of violent riots and protests in Kenosha. These are all these bloody left-wing people who went out and rioted and so on. You didn't see many right-wing people going out and rioting when Joe Biden was elected, did you? There was, of course, the insurrection in Washington, but it was nowhere near as bad as what went on with all the nutty left-wingers during days and days and days of mindless violence and rioting. So pot calling the kettle black there for the left-wing people. So why else would the prosecutor intentionally risk committing a grave constitutional violation, according to the judge, and then ignore a court order and inform jurors of evidence that had previously been ruled inadmissible? So it sounds like the prosecutor is trying to chuck the case so that he can get a chance to retry it again later on, because he knows that his case is extremely weak based on the testimony of his own witnesses. The people that were involved in it pretty much made it look like that Kyle did do this in self-defense. So let's carry on. In the first instance, Assistant District Attorney Thomas Binger questioned Rittenhouse's constitutional right to remain silent prior to trial, earning him a stinging rebuke from the bench. "You're right on the borderline, and you may be over, and it better stop," warned the Kenosha County Circuit Judge. After sending the jury out of the courtroom, "This is not permitted." As you know, in America, people have the right to remain silent, and it cannot be used against you in your trial. If you wish to remain silent, that is your right, and it should not be held against you and trying to be shown that because you're not saying anything, you must be guilty. A short time later, under cross-examination, Binger referenced a video purportedly filmed weeks before the August 2020 Kenosha killings, allegedly showing Rittenhouse saying he wanted to shoot shoplifters. There was evidence that the judge had told Binger not to introduce because it was inadmissible. If it's inadmissible, you can't bring it up. The defense team erupted and accused Binger of trying to sabotage the trial. "He's an experienced attorney and he knows better," shouted defense attorney Mark Richards. "In a murder trial focused largely on the issue of justifiable use of force, I understand Binger's desire for jurors to hear that the teen defendant had commented on social media about wishing he had his AR-15 so that he could shoot criminals. However, what he chose to do reeks of desperation and bad faith." So this is the prosecutor, because it's inadmissible it could be for whatever reasons, right? So you can't bring it up, even if it looks bad for the person on trial. In defying the court order, the prosecutor jeopardized the entire case, since the judge may grant the defendant's pending motion for mistrial with prejudice. If granted, the trial ends with no opportunity for a retrial. Rittenhouse would walk free. So that's what with prejudice means. So if it's without prejudice, it means that the prosecutor can bring the case back again on exactly the same charges. If it's with prejudice and it's dismissed, then he cannot bring any trial against Rittenhouse for the same exact charges, which would be murder, I assume. If the judge doesn't grant the motion for mistrial, I think that the defense would have strong grounds for an appeal, assuming he's ever convicted. I think the prosecutor knows that acquittal is likely. His key witness even admitted under cross-examination that Rittenhouse only shot him after he pointed his gun at the teen, a detail that the witness had neglected to initially tell police. So he admitted this under the prosecutor's questioning, not because of the defense people. He admitted this. So, in desperation and belief that he has nothing to lose, he blatantly defied a court ruling. Bingham's hopelessness increased as the 18-year-old defendant performed brilliantly on the stand. He stuck to the position that he had reasonably feared death or great bodily harm and had no alternative but to use deadly force. He was chasing me, I was alone, he threatened to kill me earlier that night, testified Rittenhouse. I didn't want to have to shoot him. The prosecutor's attempt to rattle him proved futile. At one point, Rittenhouse dramatically broke down on the stand, appearing to sob uncontrollably when describing the events that led to his shooting and killing of one of two men that died that night. The prosecutor knew the case was weak from the start. Because of that, I think it's fair to question why charges were brought to begin with. I understand that this is an extremely high-profile case. This means that the prosecutor is under immense pressure with the eyes of the world watching his every move. The reason being is that all the left-wing nut jobs out there that want to go out and write and so on, that's why this guy's under extreme pressure to win this case, because he knows that these people cannot take things that go against them, and they just want to go out and riot and cause violence. This is what left-wing people do. Even then, presidential candidate Joe Biden waded into the case when a campaign video that he tweeted showed an image of Rittenhouse as the audio referenced white supremacists and militia groups. So this is now the President of the United States which actually said this. What an idiot. However, the prosecutor has an obligation to seek the truth. Prior to trial, the prosecutor would have interviewed all potential witnesses and should have known that he cannot prove the defendant's actions were not in self-defense. While it might have been a very tough move and likely a very unpopular decision with many, the prosecutor should have announced that his chances of success were extremely low and remote. I don't think it is too early to wonder whether this trial is a gross waste of taxpayer dollars and precious judicial resources. This trial should not have been brought in the first place, because it was a clear case of self-defense, in my opinion. But the only reason that he brought it forward was because he knew that all of the crazy lefties would go out and cause violence and riots if he did nothing. So he would bring the trial, and if he didn't win, then hopefully at least bringing the trial might placate these people, but it won't. When left-wingers don't get their way, that's all they can do is become angry, be violent, and cause riots and so on. That's what they do. And people like BLM and Antifa just use it as an excuse to go out and cause mayhem. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Do you think the trial should have been brought at all? Or do you think that it was a good use of money and resources to take this to trial, even though the evidence seems pretty overwhelming that it was self-defense? But we'll have to see at the very end of the trial. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like my video, you're welcome to give me a thumbs down. And if you like my content, please subscribe, as it just means the YouTube algorithm will notice my content a bit more. Anyway, hopefully I will catch you in the next video.